Thank you for joining us today. The cycle is open and with the information sessions, and we will begin accepting applications tomorrow, Wednesday. I know some of you have been checking out the application form to see what it's all about. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and we will provide the video link as well as the PowerPoint slide deck to everyone. For those that are new to our process, and as a reminder to those that have been through our process before, the terms that we use. So when we speak about the annual process, we are referring to our full year of calls for applications and funding and work sessions and information sessions that go along with that. That includes, we open in the fall because all of our funding will be for calendar year 2025. So we track our process starting in the fall call for applications, and then we run through our spring call for applications. So that is what's referred to as the annual process. Each cycle refers to the specific call for applications. We're entering fall cycle 2024, and then we'll offer another call for applications in the spring, probably opening around March. This is for funding for calendar year 2025. All of our nonprofits are eligible to begin the calendar year request for funding in this process. You also may wait for the spring cycle. However, if you apply in the fall and are awarded funding during our fall cycle, you cannot apply in the spring cycle. We only make one competitive award annually. If you apply during the fall cycle and you are denied, you may reapply in the spring cycle. Excuse me. Okay, this is just to reiterate that we do basic a general call for applications in the spring and fall, as well as for our Janvrin Fund. The funding that will be, the applications reviewed in the fall will have funding released during first quarter of our new calendar year. The applications that will be reviewed in our spring call for applications will have funding released in the third quarter of the year. I want to touch on at the top those requests or those things that we will not provide funding for, that we do not accept application requests to fund. And this is just sort of to clear the decks, try to help set up some of the questions that may come later on during the workshop, maybe answer some of those outright questions you have in your minds. First of all, we do not make grants directly to individuals. We only grant to 501c3 organizations, municipal entities, and religious institutions that are doing programming outside of specific religious programs or projects. That means any types of just community-based work that is available to everyone regardless of their belief system. We will support collaborative work, but the applicant for the collaborative must be either a 501c3, a municipal school district entity. It cannot be an individual or a non-501c3 organization. We do not support annual fundraising campaigns and event sponsorships. We believe very strongly in our policy of non-discrimination, and we expect, we do ask and we will do due diligence to ensure that any applicant has their own non-discrimination policy in place that is all-encompassing and ensures that they are supportive of all of the groups and individuals listed in bullet number 3. We do not support capital improvement or building projects. Those are very large projects. They take a significant amount of money to accomplish, and our grants do not meet those. And so we choose not to support those. We also do not consider applications to recoup lost revenue from previous calendar years prior to 2025. And programs or materials that would normally be included in regular operating budgets for municipal and government agencies or schools. We also will not support requests that lead to the repayment of any loans or PPP or other COVID-19 related instances. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we will support consider applications from religious entities as long as those do not serve solely religious purposes. They must provide non-religious community services. And finally, we do not consider applications for endowments or capital campaigns or your annual fund drive. Keynotes on points to keep in mind for this. Once again, if you are applying in this cycle, it must be for expenses that will be incurred in 2025. So it's forward-looking estimates of expenses. It is not expenses that are incurred in the fall of 2024. If you choose to wait to apply in the spring 2025 cycle, you are more than welcome to do that. And that funding must only be used for expenses incurred after July 1st of 2025. Our general funding application will accept requests of up to $5,000. The Janvrin Fund application process cycle will accept requests of up to $15,000. I will get into the difference of those two types of funding requests in just a little bit. There is no guarantee of funding. It is a competitive process. We do continue to ask an ARPA funding question on the application. We know that there is still some ARPA funding going out into the community. It does not prohibit an application. It's more a way of the Community Foundation doing our due diligence to better understand what the ongoing needs are or the new needs are that are being addressed by that ARPA funding and how much of that funding is making it into our communities. We often get questions from those that have been through this process before about our 3-year on, 1-year off policy. We used to require organizations that received 3 consecutive competitive process awards to take a year off. We did table that during the COVID-19 pandemic and continue to table it, but we are reassessing the possible implementation of that again. And if that were to happen, we would notify everyone and discuss how we would do that. But at the moment, we do not have that in place. However, we do consider and evaluate organizations that have received consecutive and consistent funding, because our goal is to make as broad an impact in our 15 communities as possible. We always receive more requests than we're able to fund. It is a competitive process, but our goal is to try to make the deepest and the broadest impact as possible with our grant funding available. So the type of funding request that we consider: 501c3 nonprofit organizations that are located within Middlesex County and predominantly serve one or more of the towns in Middlesex County may choose to make a request that is either general operating or program project specific. 501c3 nonprofit organizations located within Middlesex County, but serving a much broader footprint, or located outside Middlesex County, serving a broad footprint that includes Middlesex County, must apply for a program or project specific purpose. So I'm going to make up an example just to be clear on that. So the Best Holiday Food Bank is located in East Hampton, Connecticut. This is a hypothetical. There isn't really a food bank called Best Holiday Food Bank in East Hampton. I'm making up a hypothetical. They only serve East Hampton. That is their footprint. They are located in our footprint. They predominantly or solely serve our footprint. They have the option of making a general operating support request or a program project specific support request. The statewide Good People Food Bank is located in Wethersfield and serves all of Connecticut. They serve 8 of the towns in Middlesex County, but they serve many other food banks across across our state. because they are located outside, have a very large footprint, and have one specific program that they are, one specific group that they are serving, they would submit a program or project specific request for support. So that's how we're defining our support for general operating. We do that predominantly because our footprint is Middlesex County. It is the 15 towns that we serve. We are looking to impact the lives of the residents and businesses and organizations in those 15 towns. And that is our primary focus. We will accept project or program specific requests from groups that are under fiscal sponsorship. However, if you are under fiscal sponsorship, please send an email to Mary and/or me. There is additional paperwork that is required for your fiscal sponsor. We also accept program or project specific applications from government entities. That could be like a division of Park and Rec in a municipal town within our footprint, school districts within our footprint, and healthcare organizations. As I mentioned earlier, faith-based organizations are welcome to apply for a specific project or program that does not require adherence to religious doctrine and is open to everyone in our community. And finally, collaborations may also supply for specific projects they're working on. Only one nonprofit will be the applicant for a collaboration. I'm going to pull up our website in just a few minutes after I touch on the general application process and the Janvrin Fund application process, because we have done website enhancements and we have new pages that are landing pages to access each of those applications. If you are making a request through our general application process, you will be making a request using the general funding application. You may request up to $5,000. It must serve one or more 15 towns in Middlesex County. The funding request that we consider, as I discussed earlier, the difference between general operations or program specific, depending on your organization and where it's based, could be very specific programs and services offered to one or more of our communities, can be technology or equipment that is utilized in your work within our communities, organizational improvement for the work that you're doing within our communities, program or project implementation. We do consider seeding a new program. We have some specifics on that. I'll speak to that momentarily, as well as training and technical assistance that may help our communities or help your staff that are working within our communities. These are applications. Our general application, our general funding application meets all of our focus areas. And as I mentioned, you're going to get these slides because we have, as a community foundation, we have a number of focus areas. We try to be as comprehensive and all embracing of every aspect that makes our communities wonderful places to live, work, and play. These could be anything from arts, culture, history, to health and human services, social services, economic security and economic opportunity, animal welfare, recreation, and all of our fields of interests, which are the first shout out I want to give is to GSB, which is also known as Guilford Savings Bank. They are a funding partner. They provide support to the pool of funding available in our process annually to support nonprofits doing great work. They turned to us in 2021 and asked us to help them by managing their process and incorporating it into ours. They are committed to investing in our communities and continuing to make sure our communities are very positive and wonderful places to live. And we appreciate having them as a funding partner and part of our competitive pool funding to give out. We do have funds that focus on animal respect and friendship. That includes welfare, shelter, food, health, training, and medical issues or medical needs, as well as education programs dedicated to helping animals and their human friends. We have funds that serve at-risk boys. We welcome a new fund that is going to be joining the process this year. A group of dedicated Deep River community members established a fund to support nonprofits and their work serving Deep River and its residents. We're honored to hold the Catron Coley Fund for Conservation and Stewardship to support beautification and conservation in the Middletown and adjacent areas. Our Killingworth Community Fund is very interested in grant proposals that support the community of Killingworth. We appreciate their great work. Of course, our Fund for Women and Girls, which is interested in programs that offer mentoring, education, and support to women, girls, and individuals that identify as female. And our St. Luke's Home Fund is interested in programs and services for seniors and veterans. I want to stress, we provide you this because we have, as I mentioned, all of these focus areas, right? Then we have all of these incredible people who've gotten together and established what we call field of interest funds, because they have very broad fields of interest they're specifically interested in supporting in our footprint. In the application process, particularly if you are new to our cycle on the application, you will not check the committee that will review your application. We do that, but you will check the impact or focus area that most meets what your request falls within. And that helps us identify the best committee or committees. Sometimes we have multiple committees review applications together to review your request. But this is to reiterate all the many ways that we are honored to work with donors every day to support our nonprofits and our 15 towns. Excuse me. I'll touch on some more specifics about the application itself because both the Janvrin and the general funding application are very similar. But let me stress a couple of things to keep in mind. We asked two questions, main narrative questions on our application. We have some demographic boxes and other boxes that you'll fill in, but we have two narrative questions, one for need and one for sustainability. Please be specific. Some background is always useful and helpful, but please do not try to give 15 years of learning background history, demographics, data analysis, and everything else in your narrative. And then really not leave yourself any space to talk about what your need is or what it is that you're attempting to accomplish and the actual steps you're going to do that within your request. We do have relatively large character limits to provide an opportunity for you to give our committees as much information as possible, but that also means you do not need to use every single character down to the very last one just because it's there. So please be thoughtful and be specific about explaining what it is that you need to do, but just because you may have an extra, 2,500 characters that you haven't used yet, don't feel that you need to just add a whole bunch of information to use it up. That's not necessary. The final thing with regard to our narrative boxes, I am asking you very, very, very firmly to not do is one single great big paragraph in that narrative box. That's a huge paragraph. There are no breaks. And it's very hard for the committee members to actually follow along after a little while and understand all the details that are in your that you're trying to give them. So please use paragraph returns. You can do that. The narrative boxes do allow for rich text formatting, which means you can bold something here or there. You can even use bullet points, but just not one big solid block of text. It's very hard to read. We continue to be interested in the critical needs of our community, what makes our organization sustainable, but also adapting to new community needs as they arise. And the ones that we've seen more and more recently could be education-based, and not just school-based, but ongoing learning education for everyone in our community. Our transportation for seniors or medical needs, mental health needs. We, of course, are always aware and like to be informed of the needs that are arising around our veterans. And we know the digital divide continues to be something that all of our communities are grappling with. The question about sustainability is what keeps you sustainable in the near term, as well as what ensures your programs can continue. How are you addressing your sustainability? If you are seeding or piloting a new program, I'm going to be very clear. So if anybody is listening who has an idea for a new program, here's what you need to keep in mind before you begin your application. How far in the development process are you? Are you hypothetical? Don't really know when you're going to launch, don't really have a timeline, no real goals or objectives set out for it. You need to take a little more time and not submit an application just yet, because you haven't reached a point yourself where you have a clear-cut concept of what it's going to take to seed this program, pilot it, and determine its overall objectives and accomplishments. However, if you're far enough down your development process that you have a really good sense of when you're going to launch your timeline, how you're going to promote it to the community, what your goals and objectives are on the outcome of that, we are always interested in helping to launch or seed a pilot program. We like to know about those, but you need to be able to answer some very specific things about it. Don't be in the very hypothetical stage. For those that are interested,
one that just came through the chat.
Okay.
Asking if you can apply for both or one.
So I'm so glad somebody asked that question. Somebody asked that question in the previous session, and I was about to, you're all mind readers today. I was just about to touch on that as I introduced the other application process that we are opening at the same time, which is our Janvrin Fund request. So an organization may submit one application, not one application to each type of application, but one application. So you have to determine, if you meet the criteria, which process do you wish to apply through? You can either apply in the general, using the general funding application, or, and only or, when you meet all of the criteria for the Janvrin Fund, you may choose to apply through the Janvrin Fund. Otherwise, if that is your project or program, that's what you meet, this criteria that we're about to review. We do have the environment as a broader focus area in our general funding request. So if you don't feel that your concept, your project, or your organization meets the various requirements in the Janvrin Fund, such as an animal-related rescue organization, then you will submit under the general funding request. So let's look at the Janvrin Fund for just a minute. The Janvrin Fund's mission is to preserve, protect, and steward the land, waterways, and wildlife habitats for the benefit of the county's ecosystem, habitats for birds and other wildlife, and the well-being and enjoyment of our residents. So that's the criteria. That's the mission of this fund. The Janvrin Fund is interested in programs, projects, and services that directly impact Middlesex County. They could benefit any or all of our 15 towns. They could touch on communities outside of our region, but they must be focused on our footprint. Grants are not restricted to the solely traditional environmental organizations that may have similar missions. We do encourage out-of-the-box thinking, creative thinking about how to bring groups together into our natural environments and our wildlife habitats to better understand stewarding the land, stewarding the habitats, and being able to access our ecosystem. These could be collaborations. This fund is very interested in collaborative efforts that could be occurring in our footprint. These applications are leveraging organizational dollars as well as other funding sources, as is the other funding. I'll get into budgets here in just a moment. I do need to make clear that at this time, we are not accepting land acquisition applications. So we are not accepting applications for land acquisition during this process. The Janvrin Fund is very interested in equitable conservation and stewardship. So what does that mean? Equitable conservation and stewardship is ensuring that everyone, regardless of where they live, whether they live in a rural, sub-rural, or an urban community, has access to, is able to enjoy and understand and able to participate in the need to conserve and steward our environment. It could be a wildlife. It could be drinking water. It could be farming access and ensuring pollinator gardens are available for the health and well-being of our pollinators. It looks at how we are all connected to our land, how we are all connected to the ability to participate in, steward, and understand the importance of our environmental spaces and the impact that they have on our community as a whole. So this, as I mentioned, you're going to get the slides. We have some ideas coming up, but we try not to box everyone in. But this application process is looking at things that are collaborative in nature whenever possible, regional in scope, rooted in solution-oriented approaches. These are project or program-based requests. These are benefit not only the ecosystem, but the health, livelihood, and enjoyment of our local residents. These could be existing programs or projects. These could be new initiatives, and it could be capacity building or technical assistance grants that are leading to all of the items that we've discussed with regard to what this fund is interested in reviewing. And I want to stress that if you are a more traditional environmental group that is working with bird wildlife, I'm using it as a hypothetical, you are more, this is a fund application that is available to you. But if you are 2 or more organizations that are looking at creative out-of-the-box ways to ensure that groups that may have never felt that they had access to the environment and felt involved in stewarding, understanding, and promoting the benefits of our ecosystem, this may be an opportunity as well for you all to present your concept to the Janvrin Fund Committee. Okay. This slide you'll get when you get the power deck. If this turns out to be something, we do have some examples here. These, once again, we are not trying to box you in. We've just tried to pull some examples forward of awards that have been made to help sort of answer the question of what do we mean by creative out of the box and why won't we give more details? We don't want to box anyone in. We want to see what your good ideas are. If this is an application criteria that you meet. That's what we're really interested in. All right, I'm going to pause again. Mary, where are we with questions? I'm looking. Oh, okay.
We've gotten one more through the chat asking if the funds need to be used within the calendar year in which it is granted.
That's a very good question, particularly for those that I know have evaluations coming up, because I will get to that. If you have a previous grant, your evaluations are due soon. So no, not necessarily. Now, we ask that you not hold on to grant funding for 2-3 years. If you are applying for a grant, it means that you have an expectation that you will be able to utilize grant funding within a reasonable amount of time. Could be 12 months, could be 6 months, could be 18 months in case you run into some obstacles. We do require evaluations for those that have passed grants. I'll touch on that in a minute, but we also know that there could be some spring applicants from the process that are here now, then you may still be in process. We have an interim evaluation that you'll need to submit. If we don't see that, if each year as we open a new process, we do a reminder that evaluations are due or updates are due or where you are in the process of expending funds. But we don't have a hard and fast date unless we begin to feel that there are significant issues and obstacles, and you may not be able to meet your original application goals. And that's usually we check in and find that out because everyone is so nice about keeping us updated. So no, we don't have like a hard and fast rule. You have to use it in 3 months. Let's take a quick look about particularly for those that have not been prowling around our new website. If you have, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you found it to be beneficial and helpful. I want to do a big shout out to Liberty Bank Foundation and A Squared Design, who both were supporters of the website enhancement project we did earlier this year. We really appreciate Liberty Bank Foundation's support on this, and A Squared Design support, as well as being the designer. We think they did a great job. If you're on our website, you will hover, if you're on a computer, just a desktop, these are all hover menus. Just hover over nonprofits, you'll get this drop-down menu. The program overview, PowerPoint slides, and the access to the video will all be on the program overview, as well as emailed to each of you individually once they're ready to go. But to access the type of application you wish to submit, you're either going to select general funding application information or Janvrin Fund, and it's going to bring you to a landing page. And I'm going to switch really quickly here because I have the website up, and I then want to point out a couple of things on the website that once you get there. All right, so once you decide, I'm just going to use, they're both almost identical, but I'm going to just pop over here really quickly and show you. So the cycles opened yesterday with the first information session, and we begin accepting applications as of tomorrow. Depending on whether you are doing a general application or a Janvrin Fund application on both pages, when you first land, this orange button here will take you to the actual application form. As a reminder, our applications are submitted online. Please do not print the pieces of the application and submit a hard copy. Please don't type up your own answers in a Word document and email it to us. It needs to come through our application platform. You do not need to be a registered user. We do not require a registered user status within the application form to process it. Under important documents, these are all links. The FAQ is there, the application instructions are there. There's an overview of the questions that will be asked in the application. You're strongly encouraged to create your narratives outside in a Word document, word processing document, because you can copy and paste into the application form. But you should write outside and copy and paste in, and then there's some tips and tricks on that as well. Organizations that are submitting project or program specific applications must also submit the budget summary form. You can download it here. It's available in Word, and you will complete it and save it as a PDF and upload it to your application. And I'm going to show you really quickly what that looks like, because we have had some struggles with this in the past. So let me be really clear about filling out this form and what we expect. Okay. Okay. So this is the project summary form, budget form you need to complete if you're submitting for a specific program or project. If you meet the criteria for a general operating, your organization's detailed budget will meet this expectation as well. So in the expense item description, I want to be clear, we don't need to know the cost of pencils. We don't need to know the costs of individual popsicles. However, if you only fill out one line here and it just says outreach program and the total amount that you expect to expend on it, that's not sufficient detail either. I don't need minutia detailed here, but we do want to know, is it staff salaries? Is it marketing materials that need to be printed? Is it, other presenters that are coming in? What are the pieces that make up your project or your program? Detail them here with their costs. Softer in-kind expenses include an organization is going to let you use their conference room for free, and it otherwise would have cost a fee to rent it, because they appreciate what you're doing and they want to help you out. It could be that you have staff time allocated to 8 programs, and this one will take X number of dollars of staff salaries. That could be coming from your own operating budget and is not necessarily detailed in your expense item, the items that you expense out for the program. Here's where people get really tripped up, down here in the CFMC, in the income section. Whatever the amount is you're requesting from the community foundation, you enter on this line. If you are requesting other grants from other funders or foundations, please list those here, and please indicate whether you have submitted the request it's pending consideration, or it's been committed. We're nosy. We'd like to know where your other funding comes from. And then other income sources could be just general donors. We do not need the names of all of your individual donors. Please don't give those to us. We are very respectful of donor anonymity. But if you just have if you use general donations, if you have general donors that like to support your programs, you could just put general donations in the amount you expect there. But this total amount here at the bottom for your income should not solely be whatever you're asking from the CFMC application process. That would be a sole funding. There is room if you need to do explanations. We don't expect detailed explanations regarding your expenses or your income sources, but sometimes we know that there are certain things that you're hoping to accomplish or you're hoping to be able to apply for, and you want to give us a little more information. There is room to do that. Right. Okay, let me get back to the PowerPoint. All right. So once again, we were asked, can we submit more than one application? No, you may choose one application, and it will either be a general funding application or the Janvrin Fund if you meet the Janvrin Collaborative. We do the Janvrin Fund, I'm sorry, for not collaborative. We do encourage collaborative opportunities when there are two or more organizations working together. Only one organization will be the applicant on that. That is the organization willing to be the fiscal entity, meaning if a grant award is approved, that is the entity that will take responsibility for the grant and for reporting back on the financials associated with that grant program. We have gotten I think that, oh, I'm sorry, it looks like I had a question on the budget. The total cost on the first page is that, yes, thank you for asking that, because that's the other conundrum that we often get. The total cost for your expenses is also the total cost on the first page of your application. That seems to be another place where people have stumbled in the past. So thank you for asking that. I have gotten the question in the past. We're part of a collaborative. There are three of us that are collaborating on a project, and organization A will be submitting that application. May we, as organization C, also submit an application for something different? While we appreciate it as something different, it does potentially raise the issue and the questions of, is there crossover? And could potentially the collaborative and your grant award cross purposes and be utilized for the same thing, which for lack of a better term, being very straightforward, is considered double dipping into your applications. So if you're part of a collaborative group that have an idea to launch a project or a program, we ask you to be part of that collaborative. Whoever's applying, whoever's going to be the lead applicant on that will list you as collaboratives, and you'll need to provide a letter of support. If there is a separate need, separate funding request, particularly when it comes to general operating, we ask that you postpone that for another cycle, because that way we don't have to come back and really ask some very, very in-depth, nosy questions about, are you positive there will be no crossover? Are you positive that there's no way these monies could mix into getting this program off the ground? So we do ask, if you're part of a collaborative, but you also have an idea for your own application, that you hold off on your own application until another cycle. Thank you. Budget documents that are required. Your organization's approved operations budget showing both estimated expenses and revenues. Please do not send a profit and loss month over month 15-page document. This is the operations budget that your board reviews, that tracks where you're estimating your expenses and you presenting your estimated expenses and your estimated revenues for either, if you are a June 30th organization, it should be your current, or if you're in the process or have had your new year budget approved, you can submit your budget for calendar year 2025, if that is your calendar year. If you have not gotten into your budget year for calendar year 2025, we do understand that. please submit your budget approved one for calendar year 2024. If you feel or you think that there will be significant changes in your new budget year, please include an explanation of that with that document. And once again, organizations applying for specific programs or projects must submit our project budget summary form as well. Acronyms are fine. You're more than welcome to use acronyms as long as the first time you use the acronym, you also state in full what that acronym means. Please keep in mind the volunteers on our committees are volunteers from the community. They come from all backgrounds, they have all interests, they're all ages. They just love to make a difference and they love to learn what's going on in their communities. So they're not specialists in your field. So if you use an acronym the very first time you use it, please tell us what that acronym means. In your narrative, again, please be specific and stay on point. Discuss your impact. If you reference the number of people you serve, be specific about that service. Where is that population from? How is that impact measured? We look for quantifiable as well as qualitative. Quantifiable is all those wonderful things you can do with numbers and you can track this and you survey that, right? Qualitative speaks to the impact, the broader impact, the importance of the work that you're doing. We're looking for both in your narratives. If you're offering a community outreach program, please be specific in your explanation of how you will notify and engage the community to ensure attendance. We know that this is a struggle for everyone right now as we transition more and more into a digital community and away from flyers and mailers and everything else. So how are you reaching out? Okay, let's talk about the selecting towns on our application. For those that have been on our application before, you know that you have the opportunity to select up to and all of the 15 towns. There are no bonus points in this process for checking off that you serve all 15 towns. The only entities that should be checking all 15 towns on our application are those whose service area and the program you're applying for will, without a doubt, serve all 15 towns. Please only select those towns that your application is applicable to. If it's 3 towns, that's fine. If it's 1 town, that's okay. Don't check all 15 just because they're there, because we will start asking that question. As I said, there are no bonus points for checking all 15 boxes just because they're 15 boxes. The other thing is the total number of served. Please give a good estimate of the total number you think you're going to serve. If you think that you're only going to serve 12 people, but it is deep, long-lasting, month-over-month impact of 12 people, that is fabulous because you are truly making a deep, long-term impact in the lives of 12 people. If you're doing a 5-part educational outreach program and you think your total is going to be about 400 people, that's great. It's 400 people. That's all right as well, because you're going to help 400 people through a series of educational programs. For those that may serve very large footprints or a whole town, maybe you serve all of Deep River, but do you really serve every single person living in Deep River? Please do not use the census numbers. Census numbers are not total numbers served. If you serve all of Middlesex County, I really would begin to ask you if you know for a fact that you are deeply impacting every single resident in Middlesex County. Have you actually had contact with all, where are we now? I think 165,000 people that live in our 15 towns, right? So please be thoughtful in your numbers. These are rough numbers, but on your final evaluation, you're also going to have to speak to your number served. So if you say that you're going to serve 600 people, but your space has room for 30, and it's a 6-part program. So that's 180 people if they only ever came one. So how do you serve 600 if you have 100? So all we ask is think about what it is that you want to do. Just because you increase big numbers doesn't mean that gives more benefit or less benefit to your application. We're just interested in how many people you're going to touch and how you come to that number. You can speak to that in your narrative if you need to. But the question for just the number is, we're just interested. Is it a program that's going to reach 20? Is it a program that's going to reach 40? It's one of those things that we can track and just be curious about. And then we also use it when we see what the final number is on the evaluation. And if you are an organization that serves every single person in Middlesex County, then you can use that number. I'm not trying to say that no one does, but it's a big number. It's a lot of work. I know that.
Thank you.
Please be sure that you proofread your applications. Proofread, proofread, proofread. And this is not just for us. This is for many applications to many of our fellow funders. Okay. Once again, as a reminder, our application, draft your application in Word, your narrative, because there is not a print preview, and it gives you a chance to run spell checker on it, and helps you preview and let other people look at it. Okay. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. You'll get all these slides. These are pretty standard, straightforward. What's required on the application? Everything must be uploaded in a PDF. I cannot stress this enough. Please do not try to upload JPEGs, TIFFs, GIFs, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents. The form will not accept them. It will not accept them. It will only accept a PDF document. Okay. If you struggle with that, or you're not sure how to do that, most of your Word documents, or most of your platforms like Microsoft Word and Notes in Apple's platform will actually give you a print to PDF option if you need to use that. But please don't try. I get emails all the time, and someone's trying to upload something, and when they ask them to send me the upload attachment on an email, it turns out it's usually an image, a JPEG image, and the application won't take that. Also, please don't fight with our application form. If you are having technical problems, reach out and let us know, because you might not be the only person who's having some technical issues with our form. We love our platform. It's very useful. I hope you find it beneficial, but we know all technology has glitches. So please reach out to us if you're struggling with it, or it doesn't seem to be working correctly, because you may not be the only person having a problem. You will need to submit a list of your board of directors with their professional affiliations. While we appreciate people giving us their email addresses and their phone numbers and their addresses, we don't want that, please, really. Is it John Smith, and is he a retired attorney? Is it Dolores Acme, and she's a registered nurse? So that's what we mean. What is their name? And what do they do? We're evaluating skill. We're always interested in the skills that come together on the boards of our nonprofits. And if you are a school and you're collaborating with a nonprofit, or you're a nonprofit collaborating with a school, or you're two nonprofits collaborating together, there is a section in these right now that will talk about the letters of support that need to be submitted with your application. So please read these. If this applies to you and you have questions, reach out. We're happy to answer them. But most people do not need letters of support. So we try to include the details here in the deck that you're going to get. General reminders: incomplete applications will not be reviewed. We will notify you, but if it's submitted as of the deadline and it's incomplete, we do have to evaluate that. Applications that do not meet the criteria will not be reviewed. This is just to make sure you meet all the criteria of what you're applying, right? And once again, as a reminder, if we are listed as the sole funder and it's the total project. So if your project costs $5,000 and you're asking for $5,000, that would be a sole funding situation. You will receive a copy of your application after you submit. If for some reason you haven't seen it after about 3 days, let us know. Sometimes the server gets a little glitchy when there's a lot of submissions going on. We're happy to forward that. So just send us an email. We may have follow-up questions about your application. So the person listed as the contact person on your application will be who we reach out to by email. If at some point in time during the fall, the person who was the contact person on your application is no longer with your organization and someone else is going to step in, please notify us of that, because we will, if we reach out even at the end with your letters of agreement, those go to the contact person. So if you have staff changing, or volunteer changes within your organization that may affect your being able to communicate about your application, please let us know. For those that may be new, and as a reminder to those that have done this process before, as you are completing your application, number one, we do not do a register here and re-log in every time for our application platform. It is stored while you're working on it on a temporary server. You can save and finish later, and the server system will pop up and automatically generate a URL specifically assigned on the temporary server to your application. We cannot see those. We have no access to those URLs. We have no access to that server. So please, before you enter your email address right here to send yourself the link, the trick that one of our past grantees came up with, and we have shared this ever since, is copy this URL link here in orange and actually paste it in the Word document where you're drafting your narrative. And then you always have it, because that link will never change for you until either 30 days has gone by and then it disappears, or you click submit. But in the interim, while you are working on your application, if you do not have access to this link, we cannot help you. There's no way for us to access this. So just be sure that you copy this for yourself, okay? But the trick, I have to give Lori Lodge at Mark a big shout out. That was her trick. She copies it, she puts it in the header of the Word document where she drafts all of her responses, and then she always has it. If you have awards from previous cycles, evaluations are due no later than September 30th. If you are still in process, please email either Mary or myself. We will send you the interim evaluation. Otherwise, on the evaluations page on our website is access to the online evaluation form. And those are due September 30th as part of the process. We always are interested in your photos and stories. We always find great ways to share those. We love sharing those out with the broader community, so feel free to send those to us. Here's your timeline. We will begin accepting applications as of tomorrow. Some people may be ready to go and you have all your answers and whatnot, so we'll start accepting applications tomorrow. Applications are due no later than 4 p.m. on the 25th of September. Now, let me say that again. 4 p.m. September 25th is the deadline to submit. Our system does timestamp applications, so please, not 8 o'clock September 25th, not midnight September 25th or 11:59. It is 4 p.m. Okay, that's the deadline. That way it gives us time to process and make sure no one's having any technical issues. Application reviews will occur in October and November. Our committees will make their recommendations to our board in December, and we will begin notifying nonprofits of the status of their applications the last week of December into early January. If you are awarded a grant, our grant agreement letters are emailed to the contact person on your application and must be returned signed in order for the grant funding to be distributed, which will occur in late February.
I did receive over the chat one regarding the budget information. So they have an application that is going to focus on a program that they run statewide. The grant, however, is only going to focus on the part of the program that takes place within Middlesex County. When including our budget, should they include the budget for the overall program statewide, or do they include the budget for the portion of the program that occurs in Middlesex County?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So this section should apply to that portion of the program, because everything that's going to occur in Middlesex County. We want to know the cost of your program within Middlesex County. The same thing in your narrative. You're going to really speak predominantly to the work you're doing in Middlesex County. If it's part of a larger program that you offer across the state in multiple communities, particularly for budget reasons, down here in the explanation if necessary section, I would recommend that you include a statement or explanation that states, we budget X amount of dollars to provide this program in these number of towns across the state. And the information here is that amount of money that we allocate specifically towards the program is offered in Middlesex County. And that gives us an ability to answer about what the overall cost of the program in general is, but we're really interested in what the cost of the program is in our footprint, because our funding, should it be awarded, will be restricted solely to only your program as it occurs in our footprint, cannot be used anywhere else. Well, once again, thank you all for joining us today. It was great to have you all here. If you have further questions, feel free to shoot an email. We always appreciate it, and we'll always make sure to incorporate those out to others that because you never know, somebody else may have the exact same question. We're always welcoming questions. So please feel free to send us an email, and it may take us a couple of days, but we will send everybody the link to the video once we get it prepared, as well as the slide deck. So you will have that information. And I once again have to stress, please, if you run into any problems with the online application form, let me know immediately. Do not fight with it, because you're probably not the only person who may be having a problem. Technology is wonderful, isn't it? Good to see you all. Thank you.